Yeah, so you're gonna hit admit all, and then from there you're gonna be able to begin the presentation.
Where am I going to do that?
So if you hit more on participants, and then you'll see the admit all button at the top.
You're talking about on this. You're talking about on here.
Yeah, in your participant.
Okay, participants. I'm a little confused here. Okay. Admit. I don't see. Enable waiting room. So I've taken that off.
So at the top of your participants, you're just going to see admit all.
I don't see that. Maybe I'm not. Oh, I wasn't high enough up. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So you can go ahead and begin your introduction, and then I'm going to mute myself. If you do need help, you can just say my name.
Okay. Okay. Hello. Hello. They can't hear me because I got a
Yeah, Benetta, everyone's going to be muting, so you're just gonna begin your presentation.
Okay, all right. This is all righty. This is interesting. Okay, so I'm talking to an audience that I can't hear you, and so I need the feedback to be able to usually get feedback. So this is a little. Anyway, welcome everyone to the Northern Virginia First Time Homebuyer class. Thank you so much again for signing up for this webinar, and thank you so much for coming. Congratulations on your first step to home ownership, step number 1. So this evening, again, we're going to go over an overview of the home buying process. And I'm going to hit several different points. And so it is 7:02, so we shall begin. So as a first-time home buyer, I'm sure that you felt some of these concerns, stressed out, intimidated, anxious, or uncertain. Do me a favor and type in the chat box what kind of which one of these you're feeling, or if none of these, what you are feeling. Anyone? Okay, I'm not getting any feedback. Okay, mix of all of them. Okay, stressed out, uncertain. Well, you've come to the right place. Thank you so much for your feedback. Intimidated, uncertain. Fantastic. Well, you've come to the right place. First of all, I made some calls to several of you yesterday, and I wanted to really introduce myself and to let you know a little bit about me. And I'm also going to let you know about my team. So I work with several fantastic lenders, and one of them is Alan Dillon. He's a VP of mortgage lending with guaranteed rate. And these are some of his qualifications. He's been in the business for 33 years, and he's done business in 125 countries. So that's pretty impressive. I've done many deals with him, and he's really great to work with. And then there's Reggie. He's a VP and regional manager with McLean Mortgage. He's been in the business for well over 20 plus years. He has been the #1 lender in Virginia since 2018. And he's awesome. I do a lot of business with him. And he is also licensed in all of these different states, so not just in the state of Virginia. And then there's me. So I'm a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Platteville a few years ago. I'm also a former school teacher and a peaceful volunteer. I started my career out teaching English as a foreign language in West Africa. I also have over 25 years of education and sales experience. I probably have more sales experience now than I have even teaching. I have sold everything you can think of, from jewelry to cars. And the last frontier for me is real estate. And I really enjoy what I'm doing. I've been licensed since 2015. Uh, and I'm also a former VHDA home buying instructor. For those of you who are not familiar with that, I'm going to explain what VHDA is in just a little bit. And I've also been awarded top producer for Northern Virginia Association of Realtors for 2020 and 2021. So that's a little bit about me. So, so this is a testimonial from one of my clients, and I have other testimonials online. If you Google my name, you can see what other people's experience about, or excuse me, with me, so that you can know, what kind of experience you would have with me if you choose me to be your realtor. So let's get into the nitty gritty. What are the steps to home ownership? My motto is learn today and buy tomorrow. So as a former school teacher, my number one goal is to make sure that you understand the steps as we move through the process, and not just give you something and say, sign here. I don't work that way. It's very important for me to make sure, again, to ensure that you understand what the process is step by step. And the first step would be to choose a realtor. And I say that because a realtor is really, if to use a sports analogy, for example, a realtor, if you have a team and say you're the owner of that team, and then you have a coach who designates different passes and all this kind of stuff. So in real estate, you're the owner, I'm the coach, and I work with the lender, the title company, the appraisal or appraiser sometimes. I will advise you what kind of insurance that you should get. And I have connections to a home inspector. I have a list of service providers that I work with, and so that you'll need during this process. So the first step would be to get a great realtor. Then after you get a great realtor, you want to get pre-approved. You want to get pre-approved before you do anything else, because the pre-approval process is going to let you know how much you can afford to buy. From there, once you're pre-approved and you get a pre-approval letter, or you're going to get cash, you have proof of funds, then you're going to do a search. You're going to do a home search for the kind of home that you're looking for and where you're looking for it. I'm going to write offers and negotiate on your behalf. And then you want to have a home inspection. And if it's a condo, you want to review the either HOA or condo docs. After that, then an appraisal, the lender will order an appraisal to make sure to ensure that you're not paying more for the home than it actually appraises for. As a matter of fact, a lender won't even lend you more for a home than it appraises for. You can still buy a home for more than it appraises for, but the lender will only give you money up to what it appraises for. And you will negotiate, that's minus the down payment. We'll talk about that a little bit more too. After that, you want to get home and title insurance, and there's two different types of title insurance. And some of these things I would go into detail as my client. I would go into more detail, but there's two different types of title insurance, and you would want both. Then after you get your home insurance, your title insurance, you want to close and settle. And close and settle is where you sign all the paperwork and pay your portion, down payment and closing costs. And we're going to talk about that a bit too. And then you get the keys and move in. So we're going to talk about the 5 mistakes, or we're going to talk about some mistakes that could really cost you money. And the first one is ignoring the buyer incentives. So this home buying incentive programs, there are lots of them. They could really save you thousands of dollars. So let me go back. I think I moved a little too fast. So here's an example of how it could save you money. Anita wants to buy a home and gets pre-approved for an FHA loan, and she gets a VHDA grant. The purchase of a home, say, costs about $300,000. An FHA and upfront MI, which is mortgage insurance cost, 1.5%. So that's $5,250, 1.75%. So the total cost for the purchase of this home will be $305,250. Now, her minimum down payment for an FHA loan is 3.5%. So that's about $10,500. And a VHDA grant incentive is about $7,500 or 2.5% of the cost of the home. Now her down payment would only be $3,000 because you would subtract the $7,500 from the $10,500, so $3,000, and then plus, if she's lucky, or depending on what type of market it is, it being a buyer's market, she could possibly borrow, or not borrow, but get 6% seller closing or seller subsidy from the seller. No more than 6%. But in this market, we're in a seller's market. Right now, that's very unlikely. But in a buyer's market, that is a possibility. And the market is always going up and down. Now let's talk about closing costs for a minute. And I've included this in my presentation because I think this is a very valuable slide. And I tell you why. Most people know that when they want to buy a house that they need a down payment. But most don't realize that in addition to a down payment, they also need closing costs. And what are closing costs? So closing costs, as explained right here, are processing fees that you pay to the lender. And the lender charges these fees in exchange for creating your loan. Closing costs covers things like the appraisal and some other things. So quite a few other things. Now, how much the closing costs would be disclosed before you close on the loan. So you would know that well in advance. As a matter of fact, as your realtor, I would tell you what the estimate of both the combination of down payment and closing costs will be about 7% of the loan here in Virginia, because here in Virginia, your closing costs about 2 to 3% of the sales price. So of that 300,000 cost, sales price, that would be between $6,000 and $9,000. I would say estimate on the higher side. It's better to estimate on the higher side, and then you don't need as much, and you'll find that out like 3 days before closing exactly how much you need to bring to the table. So, but before you buy, I would tell you how much you 7% is about to cover the down payment and closing costs. Now, for your down payment closing costs, there's certain places that if you don't have that in cash, there's certain places that you could get to get that. If you have a 401k or a retirement account, you could borrow money from there. You could also get gifts from parents, from grandparents. Now they have to sign, you have to present a gift letter signed by them that it is a gift, it's not a loan. A loan will not be acceptable. Not from parents or grandparents or friends, family, whatever. So you'd have to present that they signed a gift letter. If you have stocks or bonds, if you have cash, it has to be seasoned. That's a lender term. It has to be seasoned in the bank for 60 days. And the lender will tell you this, everything that I'm telling you about, where you could get the money for this. The lender would also tell you that in advance. Possible credit cards, probably not. Not for putting down closing on a house. For some reason, they see that as two mortgages on a house. So credit cards are not a loan. Another loan, only if you get it from a reputable source like VHDA, they have certain kinds of loans. Or, that you could get a second loan. So that's also a possibility. VHDA has that, and we'll talk about VHDA a little bit. And undocumented cash, that's a no-no. So again, this is cans and can'ts. Undocumented loans or loans outside, not an undocumented cash or unseasoned cash. No, you can't just put in $100,000 tomorrow in the bank and then you got cash. they want to know where it came from. They want to know the source. Now, we started off talking about that there were incentive programs. And there are 15 that I came across that I can tell you a little bit about, but there are 15 of them. Most of them are come from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So you have VHDA loans, you have the Home Ready program, Home Path. There's all kind of different grants, programs, and incentives that are available to first-time home buyers. Now, your lender can tell you about that if you're eligible for them. And if you fall into one of these categories, if you're a vet, you already know that you could use your vet certificate to get a loan. Or if you're Native American, then that's a possibility. There's also a Good Neighbor program. This is for teachers, policemen, firemen. They have incentive program, sales program, where they have houses set aside for this particular group so they could take advantage of. And then there are others, HUD Dollar Home Program, those you can find on the HUD store, HUDhomestore.com. They're very few and far between, especially right now. There's not enough houses. This is a seller's market, and so there is the inventory is extremely low. But sometimes there are HUD homes that you can buy for $1. There are also 203K rehab loans. There are other home buyer grants and programs. And we want to talk a little bit about, for the state of Virginia, there is the VHDA program, the National Home Buyer Funds. So you could ask a lender about any of these, or any of these that you might be available for, or if you read up on one, you could ask them about that as well. So this is one way to save you money, is to take advantage of any of these grants or loans that are possible for any of these programs. Again, a lot of these first-time homeowner programs are offered by Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. All right, and FHA. Now, there are 4 different types of mortgages that are usually available: a conventional loan, an FHA loan, a VA loan, and a USDA loan. And they are available. Let's talk about the conventional loan and what the difference is between some of the loans. A conventional loan is a home buyer's loan that is not offered or secured by a government entity. So this is not a government-backed loan. It is available through guaranteed by a private lender or 2 government-sponsored enterprises, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Let's talk about a FHA, or a Federal Housing Administration loan. FHA loans provide mortgage insurance on loans made by FHA-approved lenders. And my very first home, I used the FHA loan. And the FHA loan, we're going to go into the differences between them and the advantages one over the other in just a moment. So let's talk about an FHA loan. For an FHA loan, it's a low down payment of only 3.5%. Now again, the down payment goes to the lender, because the lender's not going to lend you any money without you having some skin in the game. And so they, if you get an FHA loan, they want 3.5% down. And you can be eligible for that, for one of those loans, with a score with as low as 580. And in some instances, as low as 500, if you have 10% to put down, 10% of the sales price to put down as a down payment. Now, it's easy financing with an FHA streamline, low mortgage rates, your debt to income ratio can be accepted, and they have limits on that. You can choose between a 15 or 30-year fixed or an adjustable rate term loan. Oops. Down payment assistance programs or grants are accepted. And again, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then the seller can pay closing costs of up to 6% with an FHA loan. Now let's talk about some of the comparison between an FHA and a conventional loan. Again, the minimum down payment for FHA loan is 3.5%. For conventional is 3%, or it can be as high as 20%. Most people think, and it used to be at one moment in time, where 20% to get a conventional loan was required, but that's no longer the case. You can get a loan for as little as a conventional loan for as little as 3%. They will look at, certain qualifications to see if you're eligible. And if you're not, maybe you have to put down a little more, or if not, then you might be eligible for an FHA loan. Again, the minimum credit score for an FHA loan is 580, and for conventional is 620. The maximum debt to income ratio is 43 to 56.9%. And again, this is an exception. This is not the rule. This is really the maximum. There's some rare moments where there's some certain conditions where this would be acceptable. And so when we talk about debt to income ratio, they're talking about, so you want to borrow money to buy a house, but do you have a car loan? Do you have a student loan? Do you have credit cards? What outstanding bills do you have? So those are what monthly bills. They take all of that in consideration, divide that into what your income is to determine whether or not you'd be eligible for one of these loans, because that's what you're looking for. Loan limits. The loan limit is to how much house you could buy with an FHA loan. So these are the parameters. Income limit, no income limit. You can have any income limit. And maximum closing costs in Virginia is still 2.5 to 3. Oh, I got 3.5. Well, it's really 2.5 to 3%. All right, let's talk about VA loans. Who's eligible? These are veterans. So to be eligible for a VA loan, you or your spouse must meet the minimum standards. And if you have any questions, I should have said this before. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And then when we get to a point, I am going to take a point after this session where I'm going to ask you some questions or answer some of your questions. So if you have any questions about anything that I'm going over now, please feel free to type it in the chat. Okay, I don't know what that is. Okay. I don't know what that drawing came from, but anyway, to be eligible for a VA loan, you or your spouse must meet the minimum service required set by the Department of Veterans Affairs and have a valid certificate of eligibility and satisfy the lender's credit and income requirements. And some of them are laid out here. To see if you are eligible for a VA loan, you will have to have served at least 90 consecutive days of active service during wartime, 181 days of active service during peacetime, etc. 6 years of service in the National Guard. Okay, you or your spouse or service member who has died in the line of duty. A spouse could also be eligible. Now let's talk about VA loans. I'm sorry, USDA loans. So conventional loans are available nationwide. USDA loans, on the other hand, are only available in eligible rural areas as determined by the USDA. And so in this area, in Northern Virginia, that wouldn't really apply. But if you went to Richmond or like some parts of Stafford County, where it's rural areas, this type of loan might be available. And these are the requirements of that: just U.S. citizenship or legal permanent residence, credit worthiness, stable income, the same standard eligibility requirements that you would really apply for any loan. The credit, minimum credit score has to be at least 640. And the current standard U.S. loan income limit is for 1 to 4 member household. And these are the earnings. That's for 2020. And this is for 2022. So what is the first time home buyer grant? So I've mentioned about the VHDA. VHDA stands for Virginia Housing Development Authority. And I was an instructor for the first time home buyer class for, for this organization. They've since changed to just VHDA, period. They've taken away, but that is what it stood for. So they will provide down payment assistance, depending on if you meet the qualifications for income, debt to income ratio, and depending on your credit rating as well. Now, VHDA, they provide loans and grants in Virginia. So it's several types of federal government loans for first-time home buyers. These loans are eligible for Virginia housing grants that reduce the out-of-pocket costs. As I gave you an example earlier in the story with Anita. Home buyers who qualify for one of these loans may also take advantage of Virginia Home Mortgage Credit Certificate Program. So when you take I'm going to go through this. So they offer down payment assistance, they offer closing cost assistance, they offer government loan programs, they offer Virginia housing conventional loans, they offer Virginia housing conventional loans with no mortgage insurance. That's when you pay less than 20% down. FHA and some conventional loans require that you have mortgage insurance. And that is because these loans are a loan, again, it's insured by for the lender, so that if in case you default on the loan, that they still get their money, that they don't completely lose out. Virginia houses second mortgage plus second mortgage. That's I think that one's on the second house. You have a mortgage credit certificate, and then you have the mortgage housing combo, where it's a combination of a loan and a grant. And a lender can speak to you to all of these different things that you might be eligible for the Virginia, the VHDA grant or loan program. And this one is just talking about the combo. That's the continuation of this. And they offer a first-time home buyers class. Again, this is what I was an instructor for. And so when you take the first-time home buyer class, they give you a certificate. It's good for 2 years. And you can use that certificate if you qualify for the grant. Now, how you would know that is when you apply for a loan, the lender will tell you whether or not you're eligible for the VHDA grant. And at that time, you can take the class. You don't have to take the class before that. As long as you take the class before you close on your loan, you'll be good if you're eligible. And some of those qualifications we talked about before is income, credit, and your DTI ratio. The steps to home ownership as designated by VHDA is to learn the process by taking one of their classes. Again, find to get approved by a licensed mortgage lender. They got it kind of choose your real estate agent to help you with the home buying process. Finalize your application. So once you apply for a loan, your application is not necessarily complete right then. There is a final walkthrough, and we're going to talk about that, a final review, and who reviews your application and who approves it or denies it. Attend the closing and closing agent with the closing agent or real estate attorney. Some people, most people in this area use a title company to close and settle, but some do hire a real estate attorney. A real estate attorney is not required in the state of Virginia. All right, so I've been talking for a while, and I want to give you a chance to ask some questions. What questions do you have for me? Let me see what I got. Any questions? I'm going to give you a few minutes. Please please submit a question if you have, so I can take some time and answer some of your questions. I don't see any right now. I don't see any yet. So I'm just going to speak to the intimidated. I'm hoping that as I go through this process, that it's going to alleviate some of your uncertainty, being stressed out, and really the real estate agent is really the one who's supposed to help you to alleviate some of that stress, because there's actually 87 steps between the time you decide to buy a home and you actually close on a home, but you'll only see about, I'd say about 10 or 12, because most of the things are done behind the scenes. So am I doing such a good job? I don't have no questions at all. Let's see, let me scroll down again. I'm sure you'll have to have some questions. Okay, could you please take us to the page that lists the VHDA loans? Okay, so not today, but if you go on VHDA.com, you can see the different types of loans. You can see about the different types of loans. You can see about the home buying class. And I also want you to keep in mind that I'm a realtor, so your best bet to talk about all the things about mortgage and insurance would really come with the lender. So we realtors have a great working knowledge of the basics, but I try to stay in my lane so I don't get in trouble. So I really talk about that, and the mortgage insurance, really that would be something, because there's different types of mortgage. There's at least 5 types of mortgage insurance. And so we're not going to really get too into that, but if you book a call with me, I can go into more detail about that. Also, anyone that books a call with me today, I have my own book. It's a buyer's guide. Where is mine? I have a buyer's guide. And so I was going to show you, but they're in my car. And so I have it on an ebook. So anybody who books a call with me after this, in the next few days, I will give you a copy of my ebook. It's for first-time home buyers. All right, what other questions do we have? Please talk about the pros and cons of using first-time home buyer programs. I don't really know of any. The pros, again, one, if you get the VHDA grant, you save money from coming out of your pocket. So that can save you right there. Again, they're going to look at, there's certain income requirements that they have. So if you get $7,500 from VHDA, that's a savings. A con would be to not take advantage of that if you have the opportunity. But again, not everybody qualifies, but so the lender can tell you right away, and you can ask the lender whether they qualify, whether you qualify or not for that program. How long does this process take? Okay, I'm not sure what process you're talking about. You're talking about the approval process, because the approval process can be a matter of days. The home buying process can be 30 days, would be 30 days, a minimum of 30 days, unless you're paying cash, it could be a week or 2 weeks. But the normal home buying process, after you find the house, is 30 days. 30 days, yes, right now it's 30 days. It used to be a little longer, but now the average is 30 days. So that's from the time that you choose the house, you write an offer and get it accepted. We call it a ratified contract. And then after that, you want to have a home inspection, you want to have termite inspection, or wood, they call them, I forget what they call them, wood, anyway, WDI. It stands for something, but it's anyways termite inspection. Then you want to have an appraisal. And if you have a home inspection, not in this market, but in a buyer's market, the seller needs time to make corrections in the home. If you ask for any corrections or renovations in the home or repairs. So the seller needs time to do that. And after the home inspection, and if you're buying in a condo, you want to read the condo or HOA docs to find out what the rules and regulations are of that particular community. And so you need time to do that. That's about 3 days. And so you need time to do that. In the meantime, in the background, again, I told you there are 87 steps. So in the background, you have the title company that is doing a title search. They want to make sure that there are no other heirs or any liens or anything that prevent this house from being sold and closed on in 30 days. So it takes about 30 days. So again, you got to get time to get your home insurance, your title insurance. You have to have time to have your application looked at. They got to look at your credit and your income and your assets. So they have to have time to do all that. And then when all of that is done, then that goes to a just get my mind. It goes to it'll come up in a minute because I'm trying to think about it. Anyway, it goes to the underwriter. And then the underwriter is going to take some time, and depending on how many loans they got. So again, it takes a full 30 days from the time that you and the seller agree on the price and the closing. And also there's an appraisal in there, because an appraiser has to go in and evaluate to make sure that what you offer for this home and what the home is worth is one and the same. And if it's not, if it's more or less, then if you're paying more than the house appraises for, then I as a realtor get to go in and negotiate on your behalf to either ask the seller to come down on the price, or that we negotiate. So I negotiate, that's an opportunity. So again, all of these steps, all of these things take place, and most of them are behind the scenes. Okay, can you share this recording after the session? Okay, I have to see about that. I have to see about that. All right, I'll see about that, because the first part of this I was recording and it was before people joined, so I should have cut it off, but I didn't. Okay, if I decide to buy a house with someone who had owned a house before, will I still be eligible to the benefits of a first-time homeowner? Yes. Now, if they haven't owned a house, then I think it's 3 years. I think it's 3 years. I have to refresh my memory on that. But I think it's if they haven't owned a house, like if their name is not on a house in the last 3 years, yes, they would be considered again a first-time home buyer. That's a good question. Thank you so much for asking that. Great question. As a matter of fact, these are all great questions. There are no bad questions. What other questions do you have? Oh, is my 5 minutes up? Stop looking on the clock. All right, shall we continue? Okay, let's continue. And then we'll get to some more questions. All right, mistake number 2 is not getting pre-approved. Now, for me, not getting pre-approved is a waste of everyone's time. Because one, right now there's COVID. People don't even want you in their houses unless you are pre-approved, because you know the stigma of people being contaminated, so they don't want people in the home. They only want people that are serious. So right now in this market, I have to show a proof of a pre-approval letter in a lot of instances before I can even take you in the house. If I schedule a showing, a lot of times the seller is asking to see a proof of income to see if you actually qualify. So this is a waste of your time, the lender's time, not the lender's time, I'm sorry, your time, my time, everybody's time in not being pre-approved. Because you don't know how much you qualify for. And that's what the whole pre-approval is about, to know and to understand how much you're pre-approved for. You don't want to go, also, you don't want to go looking at a house, fall in love, and then find out you're not eligible to buy the house. That's very disappointing. So, good question. But that wasn't a question, that was just me going into that. All right, so pillars of the mortgage approval. Again, they look at credit, income, and down payment. And really should be on here in addition to that is closing costs. Again, like here's another instance where there's no mention of closing costs, and closing costs is a real thing. It's not a makeup thing. You cannot buy a house without paying closing costs. Not the buyer, and a seller can't sell a house without paying closing costs. So they want to make sure, so that's why they want to look at your credit, they want to look at your income, and when you look at your down payment, they will also want to look at if you have any assets where you can get some your down payment from. Again, those things we talked about, gifts or gift letters or 401k or some other places. Now, let's talk about the pre-approval process. Pre-approval qualification helps you determine, again, how much you can spend based on 3 factors: credit, income, and assets. Pre-qualifications can help you to determine what house you qualify for, increase your bargaining power when negotiating with a seller. This is true. Because if you are approved for more, and then you buy a house less than you're approved for, you really do have some possibility of negotiating. Like in this market, for example, there are people that are putting in offers for houses, but then they need, they have to bid up. So I advise my clients, let's look for a house less than what you're qualified for, so we have some room to negotiate if we get in a bidding war where a seller receives multiple offers, and if you're at your max, there's no way you can go. So you want to definitely have bargaining power or room, more monies where you can bargain up to. Estimate your monthly payment and total investment. So before I put in a bid for a client, or an offer for a client, I usually send the house to the lender that I'm working with and ask them to run the numbers to ensure that you are comfortable with the payment. Now, when I work with you, I ask you up front, how much mortgage would you be comfortable with paying a month? And usually it's based on similar to what somebody's paying for rent right now. So I ask them, before I put in the offer, how much is this house going to cost them per month? And I ask the lender so that they will know, because I don't want to get in a situation where we put in an offer, the offer is accepted, and then the person says, oh my God, $2,500 a month, $3,000 a month, I can't afford that. So estimate, so this is one of the things I do as a routine, and identify which loan product will fulfill your needs. Now, there are hierarchies in loan products that usually accept it, and then that's a whole thing that I talk about when I work with somebody individual. But identify which loan product will fulfill your needs. Conventional, FHA, or VA, and again, USDA is for rural areas. So which one will best serve you? So underwriting. Again, once you you fill out an application to apply for a mortgage loan. Once the application has been evaluated by the lender or the mortgage lender is not the final say. It has to go to or through the underwriting process. Now, some companies, like when I did McLean Mortgage and Guaranteed Rate, those 2 mortgage companies, I really like working with them because when I'm your agent, I really want to make sure that you completely pre-approved, meaning we don't get to the 11th hour and then your loan is not accepted. So going to underwriting, they have a system where they evaluate everything and they send it immediately to underwriting way before 30 days. So that they, as a matter of fact, they send that to underwriting even before they issue the pre-approval letter, which is why I prefer to work with lenders like that. Because I've heard some horror stories where somebody filled out an application, the mortgage lender went through went through their paces, and they got to the 11th and 12th hour. The person was ready to close on the house and they were denied. We don't want that kind of experience. That's not fun for anybody. That's disappointing. And again, that's a waste of time. We don't want to do that. So, but the underwriting process is the final say, and the underwriter is the final say. And what they're going to review again, so they're going to run your credit in the beginning, and they're going to run your credit again right before you close. So they're going to review the income, they're going to review your credit, and we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts not to do while you're in this 30-day window. Like, don't go out and buy some furniture on credit. Oh, people have lost the ability to buy a house at the 12th hour because they were anticipating that they were going to move into a house and went out and bought furniture on credit. And that credit is set aside for you buying this house. After the 30 days, you can do whatever you want. But during this process, you don't want to buy any furniture on credit. You don't want to co-sign for any loans. There's some real do's and don'ts that we're going to talk about. They're going to review again your down payment source to make sure that you have all the funds you need when it comes time to close, because you have, as the buyer, have to bring money to the table. They're going to review again that your income is still, that you're still working at the same place. They're going to verify that again too. Tell you the maximum quality. They want to make sure that you didn't, buy something or get approved for something that you can't afford. Let me give you an example. Say in this area, there are a lot of houses, townhouses are in subdivisions. So some of the subdivisions have HOAs, some of the subdivisions have condo fees. Like I live in a townhouse that is a townhouse condo. It's a townhouse in a subdivision that is in a condo. Anyway, so based on how much you can afford monthly, your HOA or condo HOA or condo fee is a separate fee from your mortgage. So that has to be taken into consideration on top of the, if you can apply, you qualify for both of these. So that's another thing that they want to verify, that you're not buying the mortgage is one thing, condo HOA fees, and usually HOA fees are lower, but they offer a lot less services. Condos offer a lot more services, but they're going to make sure that you can afford both the condo and the HOA fee. So buyer eligibility based on underwriting. So underwriting simply means that your lender verifies, again, we just talked about your income, your assets, your debt, your property details, order to issue final approval for the loan. So the underwriter, again, is the final say. What are underwriting requirements? Underwriting standards are guidelines set by banks and lending institutions for determining what the borrower is worthy of credit. So hopes to set much debt, should be issued terms, etc. There are 4 C's in the mortgage underwriting process. That is capacity, capital, collateral, and credit. So these things, again, that's not really something you can know. It's just something that I'm sharing with you, but that's what they look at. It's not something that you have to really, worry about. They will just evaluate all of that and give you the final say. Now, Tips for simple loans, do's and don'ts. If you don't remember anything of this whole program that I'm teaching, this whole webinar that I'm teaching you tonight, please remember these, the do's and don'ts. Call us if you have any questions. Continue living in your current residence. Continue paying your, these are the do's. Continue paying your mortgage or rent. Continue to use your credit card as normal. Keep working at your current employer. Keep your same insurance company. Stay current on all of your existing accounts. Expect requests for additional documentation throughout the process. Don't make any large payments or large purchases, excuse me. Don't change bank accounts or make any large cash deposits. Please don't. Again, the money has to be seasoned. That's a banking term. That's not a my term. That's a banking term. Don't transfer balances. Don't close any credit card accounts because your credit has been issued on the accounts that are currently open. If you close them, then the credit card companies have no requirements to report that you have any credit at all. So please don't do that. Consolidate your debt onto one or two credit cards. Don't do it. Apply for new credit cards or take out a new loan or co-sign. I already mentioned that. Make out or overcharge on any credit cards. I'm sorry, max out. I misspoke. Max out or overcharge on your credit card accounts. Quit or change jobs. Please don't do it. All of this would make you not eligible at the 12th hour that you get ready to close. All right, so here we go. What questions can I answer for you now? Let me see. If I decide to buy a house or something, okay. So what questions do you have about this section? What can I answer for you? What have I not, anything that should give you some clarity on? And again, please type in your chat, your questions, while I'm going through it so that when we get to these Q&As that I can be ready and waiting to answer them for you. I don't see anything. No questions. I must be doing an awesome job. Again, I'm so glad and so thankful that you all came and joined us tonight. And so this is really a great step. One of the reasons why I love teaching this is because, again, buying a home can be both emotional and stressful. And so it is my job and my goal to take as much stress off by educating you and telling you step by step the process so that there's clarity and less tension, that you feel less, that, it's a great experience for you actually. And so, because it can be really a lot of fun looking at different houses and different things. And so I really like it. And I like to share that with my clients. Is it common to ask a lender to provide a fully underwritten pre-approval? No, it is not common. Good question. No, it's not common at all. That's a great question. It is not common. That's why I like to work with the lenders that I work with, because they do fully underwrite before they issue the pre-approval. And how long does it take? Again, the application process or pre-approval process usually can take a few days, depending on the lender that you use now. Again, the lender is everything, depending on the lender. Again, most of the lenders that I work with, it's just a matter of a few days. Is it okay to get more than one lender to run a loan? Oh, you're right. Did you see my PowerPoint in advance? So one of the things that I like to do with my clients before I introduce them to a lender is to give them a set of questions. Because you are a first-time home buyer and you may be applying for a loan for the first time, you may not know what questions to ask. So what I do is I give them, when I introduce them to a lender, I give them several attachments in the email. And one of the attachment is applying for a mortgage, 10 questions to ask. I give them attachments. So I give an example of one of the questions. What is the interest rate on the mortgage? How many discount and origination points will I pay? What are the closing costs? What can I lock? When can I lock in my interest rate? Is there a prepayment penalty? So this is the top 10 questions that should be asked of the lender. What is the minimum down payment required for the loan? What are the qualifying guidelines for this loan? What documents will I have to provide? How long will it take to process my loan application? There you go. What might delay approval of my loan? And number 11, as a bonus, what first-time homebuyer programs would I qualify for? So I send this as an attachment to all of my clients because, and that's my own personal thing. Most agents don't do that, but I do that because, again, my whole focus is to make sure that you're educated. I also recommend that you apply with more than one lender, and because all lenders are not equal. So let's see. So I'm going to answer that. And then I think we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about, yes, we're going to talk about a little more. Let's see if I have any other. Is it okay to get more than one lender to run your application? Yes. Now, I would say no more than 3. And you want to do it in a time period within 20 to 45 days. And I tell you that because you don't want to like do it 6 months from now and you also don't want to apply for a car, furniture, store credit card, mortgage loan all at the same time, because that could hurt your credit. If you're going to apply for a loan, apply with several different lenders, and anything else, let that wait till later. And don't do it too close to when you've already applied for those things, because that could. Now, if you apply with more than one lender, it's not going to hurt your credit. And I give that in an attachment as well. Here it is. How many mortgage lenders you should apply for? I give that as an attachment as well, because a lot of people don't know that they should do that. I also give a comparison list that you ask all the lenders the same questions and you write down the answers, and then you evaluate. You evaluate what they're saying and how that could apply or affect you financially, because that's really important. You really want to know that. So that's an absolute great question. I'm loving these questions. Okay, what key factors to compare when okay, what's a key factor to compare when comparing loans? Origination loans. That's one of the things. How much is it going to cost you for this loan? Is it going to cost you some points? Those are kind of things. Now, I'm not a lender, but again, I'm a realtor, and if you hire me, I'm working for you. So I'm going to tell you what you should look out for to protect yourself. All right. How much time should there be between the time you open a credit card or do anything else with your credit? Don't do anything within that 30 days. Please don't. And time you want to buy a house, don't do anything. Once you get ratified, get approved, you get a seller to accept your offer, you are in a ratified contract. 30 days. After you close, you can do whatever you want. So before you do this, or after you close, please don't do any of those do's and don'ts. And as a matter of fact, when you hire me as your realtor, I give you a folder that has in here questions to ask the lender. What is the realtor's job? What are the 12 steps to home ownership that you're going to see face to face that we're going to be working on? What are the FAQs, most often asked questions by buyers? Again, questions to ask the lender, what to expect for an appraisal. I give you a whole folder. I said, how much money should I bring? Again, that 7%, I outline that because I want you to know. I give you an example of a closing part of a closing disclosure statement, so you can see what that looks like. There's no hidden, I don't do hidden agendas, and I don't fool with people's money. So you get nothing but clarity from me, and you'll give as much information as you can stand. And there is no such thing as a question. This might be a silly question. I'm a former school teacher. There's no such animal. all questions are valid and all are important as long as you are spending your money and you need the answer. Again, learn today, buy tomorrow. All right, any more questions? Let me see. How much the, I'm not paying attention to the time. I'm just paying attention to these questions. How long are pre-approval letters usually good for? Good question. So it depends on the lender. Some are good for 30 days, some are good for 60, 90 days, but they are renewable. They are renewable. Usually, for, again, ask the lender. With my people, they are renewable because somebody might not find a house within the 30 days they're looking, or something might happen, you know, life happens in the middle, they got pre-approved and then life happens and they have to put their, their home search on hold. So that's a very good question. But usually if the time runs out, you can say, hey, can you, I want to renew this. I didn't find a house or whatever. And so they will renew it for you. Good question. All right. All right, anything else? All right, so let's go on to the next section. Using a bank, mistake number 3. Okay. Let me tell you why using a bank is not necessarily a good idea. Banks versus mortgage lenders could cost you thousands, especially if you don't know the right questions to ask. So I kind of went over some of the questions that, again, you should ask. But the reason why going to a bank, so banks, how can I say that? So mortgage lenders are really in the business of giving loans to people. That's their whole operation. That's what they live for. That's all they do. The banks, they got other services, and they use your money or our money to lend to folks. But they don't always have the, I want to say this delicately because I don't want to offend anybody, but I would, if you're going to do a comparison with different lenders, if you belong to a bank, apply at your bank and apply at a mortgage with a mortgage lender, but apply it some different. If you have a credit union and apply it with your credit union and a bank, and then you ask them all of these same questions, and then you ask them origination of, because let me tell you something about banks. They're not always forthcoming. So you don't want to have something, you know, hidden in there, and then you don't realize till after the fact. So there's what do you call it? Some kind of fee, additional point. That's the word I'm looking for. Point that you have to pay for that you didn't know. So if you're going to apply at a bank, apply it with a mortgage lender, and then you tell the difference. Good question. All right. Or maybe that wasn't a question, that was just me expounding upon the process. Okay. Some of the other things that I provide when I say, especially if you don't ask the right questions, 10 questions that people forget to ask. So I also provide this little attachment as well. Let's see. What documents do I need? What specialty government loans do I apply for? I think I said that. What are the lender fees? I don't know if I mentioned that one. So I have about 10 important questions to ask that most people forget to ask, in addition to the basic 10. What is the interest rate? So let me talk about the interest rate for just a moment. Most people, they might see an interest rate today, but the lender can't lock in your loan until you actually find a house. So when you apply for the loan, they can give you maybe an estimate, but they can't tell you exactly until you actually have a house that you have found and you have a ratified contract on. So that's a question that you might ask. So when you ask about the locked in rate, that's the response that they're going to usually give you. Does my approval have an expiration date? That might be a question that you want to ask. That's a question most people don't ask. Does the approval have an expiration date? And I don't mean that the approval letter, I mean once you apply for the loan. Are there any prepayment penalties? That's a question that you want to ask. Is there any negative amortization? Again, I'm a realtor, so some of these I don't have all the answers to, but these are questions that you could ask the lender. And you can, and this thing that I send you identifies what this means. So you're not asking without having some understanding of it. And you could ask them how long would the loan process take? It doesn't go to underwriting right away. That's a good question to ask. All right. Now, banks versus mortgage. Oh, no, let me go here. Okay. Bank penalties are expensive. Most banks will charge an origination and discount point. That's what I was talking about. In large banks, you're just one of thousands of clients. To them, you're just a number. Large banks typically have stricter guidelines than that will not cater to specific situations outside of their general box. Large banks may not offer down payment assistance programs. So again, this could cost you thousands. So you want to know that. You want to ask the right questions so that you make sure that you get the right answers. It is all posted versus discounted rates. So I don't know the difference between posted and discounted rates. Again, I don't speak to this. I stay in my lane, but I do know enough to be a little dangerous. I do know enough to advise my clients that, but any details about the lending process, I would really ask specifically the lender. All right. Bank penalties are expensive. So monoline penalties, calculations, bank penalties. Again, this would be something to really ask a lender and do some comparisons. All right, so here's a savings of 11,000 and here's an extra penalty of the same amount. So again, if you don't ask the right question, you won't get the right answer and it could cost you $1,000. All right, any questions about this? I got a few more questions while you all typing some questions. I have a few more documents that I also share with my clients, and has the 14 documents that you must have to get a mortgage. And that is, I'm just going to read off a few of them. Credit report. Well, you won't need this, but the lender will run your credit report. You'll need pay stubs. You'll need bank statements. You need a list of your assets if you have any stocks, bonds, or what is that other word? It'll come to me in a minute. Annuities, list of debts, car payments, student loans, credit cards, your W-2s, you're going to need that. Past tax returns from the last 2 years. If you're self-employed, you're going to need that too. They really want that. If you're self-employed, year-to-date profit and loss statements if you're a business owner, proof of supplemental income if you're getting child support, for example, that would be a supplemental income. If you're getting SSI, Social Security, commissions, overtime pay, tips, that sort of thing. Proof of rental income, a gift letter, we mentioned that, canceled rent or mortgage checks, divorce decree, bankruptcy or foreclosure documents. So that's 14 documents. So I'll also give you that. So you'll be ready, willing, and able to provide this on a moment's notice. Now, there's also 10 things that not to say to the 10 things not to say to your mortgage lender. So that's also provide this. Anything untruthful, you don't want to tell it, because if they find it out, no loan for you. What's the most I can borrow? It says, please don't ask this question. That shows most lenders that you haven't done your homework and you sound uninformed. I don't know if that's really true. I don't know if that's really true. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's true. Anyway, I forgot to pay that bill again. Yeah, you don't want to say that. Late payments, not good. Check out my new credit card. You don't want to say that either. Because again, during this process, you're not supposed to be applying for any new credit. Which credit card isn't maxed out? You don't want to say that either. As a matter of fact, I've worked with, again, I've done these classes in person, and I think I said that on, maybe I didn't say that, but anyway, I was a VHDA instructor, and I used to teach that class in person, and I taught my own first-time home buying classes in my former brokerage. And I say that to say, there was something I was going to say here. Something raised a question, which credit card isn't much? I can't remember what it is. Anyway, it'll come back to me. So I'll have to come back to whatever that was. Anyway, changing the jobs is not good in the middle of this process. This salary isn't a job for me. Yeah. If you're going on commission or going from a salary job to a commission job in the middle of this process, please don't do it. Now, if you have an opportunity to get a job that is in your current line of field, current industry, and a great pay, talk to the lender about that. Because that may not necessarily, you may be able to change jobs in that instance. So talk to the lender about that. But don't just go from job to job. I'm getting a cash gift from my parents for the down payment. That's great. So it says, keep in mind, many lenders allow the use of gift cash. And we talked about that for qualifying loans. So foreclosures, how does that work? So that's a question, again, that you don't want to ask. Again, this list is of questions that you don't want to ask the lender. And what is a credit score? You don't want to ask that. You don't want to ask that. What is a credit score? Okay, so let me answer a few questions on how long the approval process. I already got. So should we avoid banks due to penalties? I wouldn't say that. Well, you know, one of the advantages of applying with a bank is that you have a relationship with the bank. And depending on how long you've been a member of that bank, you may have some advantages. But again, you want to be aware. You want to ask the right questions. Don't think just because you've been a member of that bank that you're going to get the best rate, because that's not true. They operate differently than a mortgage lender. So I wouldn't say never apply. I wouldn't say that, but that's a great question. I would say if you're going to do, again, apply at multiple situations, and if you're comfortable with your bank, apply there. Because I don't want to say that I've never done business or had somebody who was approved by the wrong bank. So I don't want to say that. So I would not say that. Does that sound fair? All right, so if we don't have any more questions for this section, I'll keep it moving. Mistake number 4, buying directly from a builder. So this is a good one. Many people, okay, so let me go over this. The cost of buying straight from a builder can be the difference between $5,000 and $40,000. Let's go into a little detail. Well, let me stay on this for just a moment. Many people think that, well, I'm just going to buy a new house and I don't need a real estate agent. Not so. Not so at all. There are some advantages of, there are lots of advantages of having a realtor. I'm not saying that just because I am a realtor. I'm saying that because I have worked in the last year, I have worked with 5 different first-time home buyers that are buying homes from builders. Prior to that, it was just retail houses that were previously owned. But in the last year, because there is such an shortage of inventory of houses on the market, a lot of first-time home buyers are going to the builders. When I say going to the builders, meaning they're buying from builders, and I don't mean directly, I mean with the use of agents. Now, let me go into detail why I say you really could need an agent. Closing cost assistance can be a bait. So builders offer they offer assistance for you to use their lender and also for you to use their title company. Now, but what keep in mind the sales representative that you see in the model home works for the builder. They don't work for you. They're not looking out for your best interest. They're working for the builder. The real estate agent, the realtor, is going to be working for you. What I'm going to be looking for is a realtor works for you and a sales agent. Again, I've already said that a realtor can help you to make the best decision financially. Yes. So what I did, I put down here, tell the story. That's the reminder for me to tell you a story. So I recently helped a couple, their previous client of mine. And so they bought a house less than 2 years ago. They're selling it. They need a bigger house. We looked at some houses. They didn't see any resale houses that they liked. So we ended up in the new construction with a builder. Fell in love. They wanted to buy the house. Great. We signed paperwork. So I had them do a couple of things. One, I would research and have you to research the builder's reputation. Because just because they're a builder, don't mean they have great reputation. So that's one thing I would have you do as your realtor. Two, the builder offered them a $15,000 incentive, $10,000 for something and $5,000 because he was a vet. Okay, and maybe $5,000 was from the lender, and $5,000 was because he was going to use their title company, and then $1,000 off the price because he was a vet. Now, with all that being said, I had the client applied with their lender because there was incentive there, $10,000. That's a good incentive. But I also had him to send that approval to my guy at McLean Mortgage, Reggie, to see if he was getting a good deal. Because a lot of times, again, like banks, they sneaking something in there and you don't know, points, origination fees. And so, they smile in your face, but you want to know that you're getting a good deal. Thankfully, in this issue, they sent it to my guy, and my guy he could, because you don't have to use the builder's lender, you can use your own lender. But I know Reggie, I've known him for years, I've worked with him for years. I know him to be honest enough to say, hey, you either got a great deal here or hey, I can offer you a better one. And he's not going to tell them any less than. So again, that's a realtor looking out for your behalf. That's a realtor really looking out for you. Home inspections. Now, again, the builder is going to do, they have inspections that they have to adhere to in order to keep moving forward. But there's still some things that you want to have a private inspection to look for, to make sure that, there's no cracks, so that they've done things correctly. Because again, after they, before the wires are put in and before the plumbing is put in, all of that kind of stuff, they have to meet certain requirements. But after that, you still want to have a home inspection. And only a realtor is going to advise you to do that. The builder is not going to advise you to do that. You want to have a final walkthrough. You want to have that final walkthrough so again we can see if there's any cracks or any points or anything that's out of the ordinary. And if so, we want to know what's the timeline on getting it fixed. They're going to fix it before you close or right after, and we want it in writing. That's something that the realtor is going to advise you on and to have and keep them on point. I keep them on point. They have to see me on everything, and then I tell my clients, whether this is good, bad, indifference, or whether we should be doing, whether there's something else we should ask for. And that keeps the builder straight on the straight and narrow. And not to say, I'm not trying to say that but you know what, there's always a possibility, and not everybody's honest. Let's just put it out there. So the realtor can help you to save money on costs and buying a home. The bottom line, we can help you do a lot of things. So don't think just going to a builder is the end all be all, because it's not. Again, that salesperson works for the builder and I work for you. What questions do you have for me? All right, what questions do you have for me about that section? How do you all think this is going? I mean, is this informative? Are you learning a lot? Am I answering questions? Not answering questions. Of course, I'm asking questions. Is there? Now, I know that I've spoken to some of you, and I've asked you to book after this call to book time with me, and then we could talk about your individual situations, because unfortunately I can't address that. There's probably 40, 50 people that signed up for this, and we got 20 participants now that are actually on this call. So I can't speak to, and that's the norm, about half to show up. So there is my my calendar. I'm sorry, my calendar to book a call with me, and I'd be happy to talk to you about anything that we didn't get into here, time frames, advise you, how to apply, introduce you to a lender. Oh, thank you, very informative. Thank you so much. I really enjoy what I do. I mean, I just really, really, really want to share and make sure that everybody really understands the process as they go, as we move through. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. If there aren't any other questions at this time, I will keep it moving. Anything else? All right. So we are almost we're getting down to the time here. Skipping home inspection. This is mistake number 5. So let's just speak to this specifically. In this market right now, it is a seller's market. The market, again, is always going up and down and correcting itself. Sometimes it's a buyer's market. When there's a supply of houses, multiple houses, like it will be after COVID, we don't know when that's going to be. There will be a surplus of houses on the market, but we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know when that's going to be. And so that would then be a seller's market, and then lots of people are going to be trying to sell. However, right now, it's a seller's market. In the seller's market, and the seller's market is that there's not, the law of supply and demand. So right now there's a low supply and there's a high demand. In a buyer's market, there's high supply and low demand. So you can get more in low demand than you can get in the high demand in terms of compensation, sellers, subsidies, that sort of thing. But in this market, right now, an awful lot of people, there's bidding wars. And a lot of people are skipping the home inspection. So I have a way to kind of get around that because I would never, ever advise my client to buy a home without having a home inspection. No way, no how, no. And it can cost you $20,000 or more. Let's talk about it. Skipping the home inspection. You purchase a house unaware of the deal breakers, unaware of the hidden unknowns, of the unknowns about the house. I'm going to tell you a story. Let's go through this first. You lose your negotiating power. It's true when you buy a house without it, because in a buyer's market where once you had a home inspection, if there were any repairs that needed to be done, you would have the ability to negotiate those with the seller and say, hey, I want this. But again, we would only be asking for large repairs, not minor repairs. Not, can you change the color of the wall? That's not going to work. But if there's something wrong with the roof, or there's something wrong with electricity, or something wrong, or there's a water leak, or there's a plumbing problem, now those would be negotiated. Or the garage door isn't opening, that would be negotiated. Those would be repairs that we would be negotiating. But when you skip or void or don't have the home inspection as a contingency, you you lose some, you lose something. Again, I have a way to get around that. So you risk inheriting non-structural safety issues such as mold, radon, carbon monoxide, and a whole lot of other stuff. You miss having a forecast of future repair costs. Yes. You're oblivious to illegal non-code additions and remodels. Yes. Because some people say, hey, we bought this house, it was a 2-bedroom, and now we got 25 people living in this house, so we're going to add on some additions, and we don't care if it's coded or not because Jimmy needs a room. And so, yeah, you don't want to buy that. So let me tell you a story. Recently, I had a couple that I was working with, and I showed them several houses, and we went in this one house, and the kitchen, was to die for. The house looked to be remodeled from beginning to end. It looked to be. I said it looked to be, right? Okay, you heard me say it looked to be. So this house, the kitchen was marvelous. It had a big island, and all the cabinets were white, and they had new stainless steel appliances, and they had the tile on the floor. Oh my God, it was beautiful. And a new chandelier, new lighting. It was magnificent. And so I told the client that we would have a home inspection. We should, we put in an offer. We got the offer. We got a ratified contract with the seller. And then I told them that we needed to have, I advised them, I didn't tell them, let me correct that. I don't tell, I advise that they should have a home inspection. And again, I have a very good relationship with a lot of service providers. So the home inspector that I do, he's very thorough. And he came and he went through the house with a fine-tooth comb. And then we started seeing this wonderful, magnificent looking house in a very different light. Let me tell you why. One of the first things he pointed out was that there were new kitchen windows, but the rest of the house, there were old kitchen windows, and some of them were rotting. Okay? And some of the windows didn't open. We were dazzled by the, I forgot what the word I used, but we were dazzled by the newness of it. We went down in the basement. The furnace did not come on. The water heater was not hooked up. There were stains in the ceiling of the basement. There were stains in the roof, in the attic, right up under the roof. This, of course, is not something that we saw as we walked through because we're not home inspectors. And so I asked the listing agent, I said, well, the furnace isn't on. So he told me that the furnace was going to be on Tuesday. This was a Thursday. This was a Thursday. He told me the heat was going to be on Tuesday. Something was wrong with this picture. Thank God this house was in a subdivision that has an HOA. And again, with HOAs, you have to get HOA docs. The documents that tell you about the rules and regulations of the community. Now, he sent me the rules and regulations on Friday, and they only have 3 days to read these rules and the regulations. So the rules and the HOA is the contingencies that they can get out on. There's about 3 contingencies where you can get out on. One is home inspection. One is HOA docs if a community is in HOA or condo docs, and then 2 is a appraisal if you all don't agree. Other than that, you can't get out of the deal. So 1, we had this home inspection, and now the furnace is not going to be on Tuesday, so we're not even sure if the furnace is going to work. 2, he sent me these HOA docs on Friday, and then Monday, that's their 3 days. So by Tuesday, we can't get out on the HOA docs because it's Tuesday. Too late, too bad, too sad. Nothing's going. So that really concerned me. That wasn't just a red flag, that was a red pole. That was a flag all the way up the pole. So what I did was I called the utility company, and I asked them. I told them who I was because I don't. I told them who I was and why I was calling. And I asked them if there was a order for the furnace to be uh, um, turned on Tuesday. He told me no, no order for the furnace to be turned on Tuesday. But the listing agent said, okay, great. Then I asked him, now how long has the furnace been off? Or yes, how long has the furnace, yes, the furnace, which is also furnace and air conditioning, how long has it been off? He said since April. We were in November. So even if you are going to remodel a house completely, it doesn't take from April to November to have the furnace back on. So that was a big of it. So I advised my clients that I didn't think that was a good investment for them. Besides, the husband had just gotten out of the hospital after several months. And besides, you don't want to buy a house with a beautiful kitchen and no heat. It doesn't make any sense. So they took my advice, and I promised them, because the wife was just so disappointed. Her little face just sunk, and she just looked so discouraged because we had looked at quite a few houses by that time. And so I said to her, don't worry, we're going to find a house much better than this. And lo and behold, I said, trust me. They lived in Woodbridge with her sister, and the mother said, not the wife, but the wife's mother said, well, we don't want you to go to Stafford. That's too far. And I said, let me tell you something. The kind of money you get, you want to get the biggest bang for your buck. Let's go to Stafford. That's only 2 exits down the road. You got Dumfries between Woodbridge and Stafford. That's it. We went to Stafford. I said, I want you to let me to pick out a few houses to show you. The very first house, and I never show more than 5 houses a day at one time. The very first house that we looked at in Stafford, it was renovated. It had been bought by an investor a few months before. He had completely renovated this house from top to bottom. It was all done in black and white. We had the home inspection. The home inspector said, now this is a good buy, but I already knew. But we went through that house, and they bought that house, and they're now living in the house today. They bought the house right before this past Christmas. And they just moved in because the husband had some medical challenges. So they just moved in about 3-4 weeks ago. And the house had everything, plus the other house didn't have. The husband needed an office, the other house didn't have that. They had a working furnace, brand new furnace, a brand new water heater. They left them a piano. They gave them a year's worth of yard service. It was a complete difference between night and day. And so I would never advise my client without having some kind of inspection. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right. Make mistake number 6. Oh, I'm sorry. Did we have any questions about this section? Do we have any questions about this section before I move on? Any questions? Going once, going twice. All right. I must be doing an awesome job. Do I see something coming in? Do I see somebody? For Nancy? For Nancy, are you typing? Nope. All right. All right. If you type something, I'll answer it. Let's go to mistake number 6, skipping the condo documents review. Again, this can cost you money. It can cost you HOA, a condo. Let me give you a story about this. It can cost you $10,000 or more. Now, the reason why you want to read, not only do the condo docs, are there rules and regulations about the community? Well, it is that primarily, but certain communities require certain things to be done and not to be done in the community. And it says that in those rules and regulations. Let me give you an example. So you want to move in a community and the HOA or condo docs say that you can't paint your house Easter egg yellow or purple. You want to know that because that might be your goal in life. You might want a purple house. But in this community, you can't do that. You need to know that you can't do that before you move into this community. It really tells you what the rules and regulations are. You want to know if you have a parking spot, what your assigned parking spot is. You want to know that if you renovate your house on the inside, if there's any rules and regulations about that, because they may have some rules and regulations where you have to submit changing the interior of your house, completely renovating, moving walls and taking that out, all of that stuff. You want to know that because if you don't, you want to know that before you move in. And then you want to review this before you move out because most communities that have an HOA or condo, they also have an inspection of the home prior to it being sold to see if any of these violations have been done. And you want to make sure that there are no violations in these condo docs or HOA docs because otherwise, if you buy it, then you'll be on the hook for it. And let me give you an example of what I mean. So I had a client that found a beautiful condo in Alexandria. The condo had been renovated. Now, and the way they renovated it just opened up the living, dining room, kitchen to be one big open room. It was fabulous. However, in the HOA and condo docs, that was not approved. So if my client had bought it as is, then he would be responsible for correcting that if he ever sold the property. And I told him that he didn't want to get into that kind of situation because if the guy who was trying to sell it didn't have the money to put it back the way it was supposed to be, you won't be in that kind of situation. He was ready to move now. He didn't want to move later, he wanted to move now. He had a daughter and he needed a room for he and his daughter, 2 bedrooms. So that wasn't going to work. So that's why skipping the HOA and condo documents, that's why you can get out on these because if you want Easter egg purple and it's not allowed, or you want to hang the laundry outside and that's not allowed, you don't want to move in that community. So you don't want to get in a situation, and there could be penalties for every violation in these communities where you don't adhere to the rules and regulations. It could cost you money. So you don't want to skip. That's not an option. That's not a good thing. All right. So now we've gone through our program. I've shared a lot of information with you. Please tell me how you feel now. Excited, confident, informed, or more. And again, when I work with a client, I give you a lot of information to, not a book, but I mean, I give you the ebook if you like, but in a pamphlet, I give you the highlights of what I'm talking about. I keep you informed because I think it's vitally important. This may be the largest investment that you may ever make in your life. And so I want to make sure that you're well informed. That is my goal. So please share with me how you all feel now. Very important. Thank you so much. This was a formidable, wonderful, wonderful. Hope it was a little fun too. I kind of beat myself on there. Any questions or anything that I haven't gone over? Any other questions that I can maybe ask from you? Hopeful, really enjoyed the seminar. Oh, thank you. Helpful information. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. No, this is great. Glad I came. You're fun because I can tell you, I do. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. All right. So if there aren't any more questions, um, I would again ask you to the very next step. And whether you want to buy now or, whether you want to buy, let's talk. Please schedule a meeting with me and let's talk. And so that when you're ready to buy, even if it's not right away, please book a call with me and let's start to get some things in place, because I can advise you about, if you're working on your credit. Again, we talked about credit. I can advise you on how you can get that done quickly. If you are trying to save money for your down payment, again, I can go into some details about um, some of that VHDA program or some other programs that you can look at. So there are some other things that, some other advice that I can help you with, even if you're not ready to buy today. And I know a few of you are ready to buy, you said within this year. Let's talk about that, because you might be surprised. You might even be uh, able to buy sooner than you think. I know some of you talked about your leases and you want to wait out your lease. Again, there may be ways to work around it if you're interested in getting in a bit sooner. So again, it has been my absolute pleasure to present this to you this evening. Again, thank you so much for coming. And I look forward to talking with you all one-on-one and talking to you about your individual situations. And with that being said, I bid you good night if there's no more questions. Thank you so much for coming. And bye for now.